The church was nearly empty when Father Michael lit the last candle before the crucifix. Shadows stretched long across the pews, the flames glowed trembling against stained glass windows. He had always found solace in these quiet hours, but tonight the silence pressed down like a weight on his chest. He had been praying for guidance. For courage. For the strength to do what he had failed to do years ago when Jonah first sat in his confessional, voice low, whispering words that clung to Michael's bones like thorns. But prayer had only deepened the hollow inside him. A sound startled him, the heavy wooden doors creaking open. He turned, half expecting the faceless shuffle of another parishioner seeking forgiveness. Instead, it was Elena. She didn't wait for pleasantries. She walked straight down the aisle, her heels striking the old floor, her eyes burning with urgency. "Father," she said, her voice tight, "we need to talk. Now." Michael's shoulders sagged. He knew this was coming. "Elena." "No more evasions," she cut in sharply. "You've been carrying something. You know something. And whatever it is, it's eating at you while a student in my care grows more terrified by the day." Her words echoed in the hollow church, louder than any sermon he'd ever spoken. Michael sank onto a pew, rubbing his hands over his face. For a long moment, he said nothing. But the look in her eyes told him there was no escape left. "I can't," his voice cracked. "I can't break the seal of confession. Not even now. You understand that?" Elena's jaw tightened. "Do you understand what I hear every time Mary walks into my office? She's drowning in fear, and you're hiding behind tradition." Michael flinched. She stepped closer, her voice softening but no less fierce. "This isn't about dogma, Father. This is about lives. About children. About Jonah Reeves. Don't deny it, it's him, isn't it?" Michael's silence was enough. He bowed his head, his hands trembling. "Years ago, he came to me. He spoke of darkness, of voices that told him to cleanse the world, of hate twisting inside him. I thought his breath caught. I thought I could guide him back. I failed. And now..." Elena's chest tightened. "And now he's preparing to do something. Something violent." Michael's eyes glistened in the candlelight. He looked up at the crucifix, as though searching for permission. "If I break his trust, I damn myself. But if I remain silent..." He trailed off, unable to finish. Elena's voice dropped to a whisper, thick with urgency. "Father, if you say nothing, the blood of those children will be on your hands." The words landed like a blade. He closed his eyes, pain etched deep in his face. For a long, aching silence, neither spoke. Then, at last, Father Michael rose to his feet. His decision weighed heavily, but it was clear. "There are lines I cannot cross," he said hoarsely. "But there are others I can. I cannot tell you his sins, Elena, but I can help you stop him." Elena exhaled, her heart pounding. For the first time in weeks, the silence shifted. It wasn't victory, not yet, but it was a movement. Michael's hands shook as he reached for his coat. "If Jonah is as close as I fear, then God help us both. Because we may already be too late." Jonah Reeves walked with his hood up, the duffel bag slung heavy across his shoulder. The night was damp, the air tasting faintly of iron. Each step echoed in his chest like a drumbeat. He had chosen the route carefully, back streets, blind corners, alleys where the lamplight barely reached. He avoided faces, avoided eyes, but inside he felt as though the entire city was watching him. Judging him. He whispered under his breath as he walked, half prayer, half incantation, "This is the reckoning. This is the cleansing. This is the fire that makes them see." The weight of the bag pressed into his spine, but instead of tiring him, it steadied him. Each pound reminded him of control. Of power. For years he had been nothing, mocked, forgotten, dismissed. Tonight, he was the architect. At an intersection, a patrol car rolled by. Jonah froze in the shadows, his pulse hammering in his ears. The red-blue lights flared across his hood for a split second, then vanished down the road. He exhaled, a shaky laugh escaping. They have no idea. The school wasn't far away now. He could almost see the white spire of the chapel rising over the rooftops. His old prison. His proving ground. His stage. A memory struck him, sitting in those pews as a boy, Father Michael's voice droning about salvation. The hollow promises, the false comfort. Jonah had stared at the crucifix, wondering if even Christ would have laughed at him, dirty shoes, empty pockets. Not anymore. He gripped the strap tighter, his knuckles whitening. Tonight I am the cross they'll bear. He ducked into another alley, pulling the zipper down slightly. His eyes traced the wires inside, the shapes of metal and plastic. He felt a thrill in his stomach, the raw hum of inevitability. But then, Mary's face flashed across his mind again. Her wide, wet eyes. Her trembling voice. Jonah stopped in his tracks, chest heaving. For a moment, doubt clawed at him. She would be there. She might be caught in it all. He pressed his forehead to the brick wall, breathing hard. No, he muttered. She'll understand. She'll survive. She has to. His voice cracked on the last word. A figure passed at the far end of the alley, and Jonah yanked the bag closed, pulling the hood lower. His steps quickened. He couldn't falter now, not after everything. The school was waiting. The world was waiting. And tonight, they would finally hear him in the only language he believed they deserved, silence, broken by fire. The Catholic school loomed ahead, its white stone walls glowing faintly in the spill of the street lamps. The crucifix above the entrance glared down, pale against the night sky, as though daring Jonah to enter. His grip tightened on the duffel strap. The weight was a living thing now, pulling him forward, anchoring his steps. He lingered at the gate, the iron bars cold beneath his hand. The yard was empty, but the silence felt charged like the world itself was holding its breath. Jonah's heart thudded. Not with fear. With anticipation. This is it. This is the moment they'll remember. The day they'll finally hear me. He pushed the gate open, the squeal of hinges echoing too loud in the night. For an instant, he froze, eyes darting to the windows. No movement. No alarm. Just stillness. Crossing the courtyard felt like walking into memory. His footsteps stirred echoes of childhood, Mary skipping beside him, lunchbox swinging, her laughter piercing the monotony. He clenched his jaw, forcing the sound away. She'll understand, he told himself again. When it's done, she'll see it was the only way. At the side entrance, he crouched low, pulling a set of lockpicks from his jacket. His hands moved with practiced precision. Within seconds, the door gave a soft click and eased open. Inside, the air smelled of chalk and old wood polish. The hallways stretched ahead, dimly lit by security lights. Rows of lockers lined the walls like silent witnesses. Jonah stepped inside, shutting the door behind him. The school was his now. He moved down the corridor, his boots whispering against the linoleum. Each doorway he passed tugged at his memory, classrooms where teachers scolded him, where whispers of weird and freak followed him until they became his name. Not tonight. Tonight, he was rewriting it all. At the stairwell, he paused, pulling the duffel from his shoulder and setting it on the floor. He unzipped it halfway, fingers grazing the cold metal inside. The sight steadied him, the plan sharpening in his mind. First the chapel. Then the classrooms. Then silence. A faint creak echoed above him, floorboards shifting. Jonah stiffened, muscles coiled. Someone was here. His pulse roared in his ears. He held his breath, waiting. Then a soft laugh. Children's laughter, muffled, drifting from somewhere upstairs. Jonah's lips parted. A smile flickered, twisted and brittle. Perfect. He zipped the bag closed and lifted it again, the weight no longer a burden but purpose. Step by step, he climbed the stairwell, each creak of the steps like a drumbeat of fate. At the landing, he paused, eyes scanning the darkened hallway ahead. Doors shut. Lights low. But behind one of those doors, life, warm and oblivious. He exhaled slowly. It begins tonight. And with that, Jonah Reeves took his first step into the silence he had been chasing all his life. Jonah's boots sank into the worn carpet of the second-floor hallway. The air was thick with the scent of pencil shavings and floor wax, a smell that pulled him back into the years he spent here, years he swore had crushed him. He stopped outside a classroom door. Light leaked faintly from beneath it. Voices hummed inside, soft, indistinct. The laughter he had heard moments ago. Children. His fingers trembled as he set the duffel on the floor. For a heartbeat, silence pressed against his skull, almost unbearable. He reached for the zipper and pulled it slowly. The teeth parted with a soft rasp. Metal gleamed inside. Cold. Inevitable. Jonah's chest tightened, not with fear, but with something stranger. Exhilaration. This is it. This is where the world changes. He closed his eyes, pressing his palm flat against the weapon, almost like a prayer. He could still hear Mary's voice in his head, soft, pleading, begging him to stop, to come back to her. For a sliver of a second, it almost made him hesitate. Almost. He yanked the bag open the rest of the way, gripping the weapon, the weight of it surging through him like electricity. His breath came shallow, his pulse thrumming in his ears. Jonah stood, the door handle in his free hand. He turned it slowly. The latch gave with a click. The classroom was small, warm. Desks in neat rows. Posters on the walls, faith, kindness, hope. The words mocked him. At the front, a teacher was gathering papers, students shuffling in their seats. None of them had noticed the figure in the doorway yet. Jonah stepped inside. For a single frozen moment, time fractured. Children looked up, faces open with confusion. One boy tilted his head, curious rather than afraid. The teacher's eyes widened. Jonah raised the weapon. The room shattered into screams. Desks clattered, chairs toppled. The teacher lunged forward instinctively, arms outstretched, but her voice broke under the panic. Children scattered, some crouching beneath desks, others frozen in shock. Jonah's finger tightened. The sound that followed split the air, a crack so violent it seemed to tear the world open. The chaos was instant. Screams clawed at the walls. The teacher collapsed, clutching her arm, the blood vivid against her sleeve. Children sobbed, scrambling, their voices jagged with terror. Jonah stood still in the storm he had unleashed, the echoes rattling inside his skull. His chest heaved, his body alive with fire. For the first time in his life, the room belonged to him. Not a laugh. Not a whisper. Not a sneer. Only silence, fractured by fear. And in that silence, Jonah smiled. Now they understand. The church bell had just finished its last toll when Elena and Father Michael stepped out into the night. They were still speaking in tense, hushed tones, their words edged with urgency. "I can help you stop him," Michael had said, his voice raw. "But we must move carefully." Elena was about to press him further when it came. The sound. It cracked through the air like lightning, so sharp and unnatural it froze her in place. For a half-second her brain refused to process it, then came the second crack, and the third, rolling like thunder. Her stomach dropped. "No," she whispered. "Dear God, no." Michael's face blanched, his hand gripping the crucifix at his chest. The echoes carried across the schoolyard, jagged, unmistakable. Children's screams cut through the night, shrill and desperate. Elena felt the world tilt beneath her feet. Every instinct screamed. "Jonah," Michael rasped, the name escaping like a curse. Elena spun toward the school. "We have to get them out." Michael caught her arm, his eyes wild. "You can't just charge in, he'll kill you too." "I can't stand here and do nothing," she snapped, tearing free. Her voice shook, but her resolve was hard as stone. "Those are my students. Mary is in there." Michael hesitated, torn between fear and duty. His entire body trembled, but in his eyes burned something Elena hadn't seen before, fury, born not of anger at Jonah alone, but at himself. At the years of silence that had led here. "Then I'm coming with you," he said, his voice hoarse. They sprinted across the courtyard, the night split with chaos. Every step seemed to drag through molasses, the screams growing sharper, nearer. Elena's lungs burned, but she didn't slow. Her heart thundered as she yanked at the side door. Locked. Michael shoved against it, futile. Another crack split the air from inside, louder this time, closer, and Elena felt bile rise in her throat. She slammed her fists against the door. "Jonah! Stop!" she cried, as though her voice could pierce the storm. Only silence answered, then another shriek from a child. Michael leaned against the wall, gasping. His lips moved soundlessly, prayer or panic, Elena couldn't tell. The weight of it crashed down on her. They were on the wrong side of the door. Every second wasted meant more lives shattered. Elena pressed her forehead to the cold metal, her fists still trembling against it. "Hold on," she whispered, though she wasn't sure who she was speaking to, the children inside, Mary, or herself. Then Michael's eyes widened. "There's another entrance. Around back, near the chapel." Without a word, Elena bolted. The screams followed them into the dark. Mary had been in the hallway, clutching her notebook, when the first crack split the air. She froze, every muscle locking tight. For a heartbeat, she thought it was something else, an accident, maybe a slammed door. But then came the second crack, sharper, followed by screams that tore through the corridor like jagged glass. Her legs buckled. She stumbled against the lockers, the notebook slipping from her hands and falling open on the floor. The words she'd written stared back at her, "They'll see. Fire cleanses. Truth through silence." Jonah's words. Her breath came in short, shallow bursts. She knew. She had always known. But now it was real, roaring in her ears, drowning out every hope she'd clung to that maybe, just maybe, he wouldn't go this far. She pressed her palms against her ears, but it didn't block the sounds, the sobbing, the running footsteps, the chaos spilling from the classrooms. Somewhere down the hall, she heard a teacher shouting for the students to get down, get quiet. And beneath it all, she heard him. Jonah's voice. Not shouting, not panicked, calm. Too calm. "Stay down," he barked, "stay still, and it'll be quick." Her heart fractured. That was her brother. His name is Jonah. The boy who once carried her lunchbox when it was too heavy, who swore he'd always protect her. But this Jonah wasn't protecting anyone. Her vision blurred as tears filled her eyes. She wanted to run, to hide, to sink into the floor. But she couldn't move away, not toward him. "Mary," a voice hissed from behind. One of her classmates, crouched low, motioned for her to join them in a storage alcove. But she shook her head numbly. Her body wouldn't obey. She looked down again at the notebook splayed on the floor, Jonah's words written in her own hand. As if she had given him her voice. Her complicity. A sob tore through her chest. "I did this. I helped him hide." Another crack echoed, closer this time. The screams rose, piercing. Mary flinched, covering her mouth to keep from crying out. And then footsteps. Heavy, deliberate. Approaching. She turned, her heart slamming against her ribs. Down the corridor, Jonah emerged from a classroom, the duffel still slung at his side, his face expressionless. His eyes locked on hers. Time stopped. "Mary," he said softly, almost tenderly, as though they were alone in the world. Her legs nearly gave way. She wanted to collapse, to beg him to stop. But all that came out was a broken whisper. "Jonah, please." His expression didn't change. But in his eyes, for a flicker, she saw something, doubt? Pain? Or just anger at her weakness? He raised a finger to his lips. "Shh." Then he turned away, moving down the hall toward the chapel. Mary sank to her knees, sobbing silently. She knew, with a sick certainty, that her silence had carried him here. And if she didn't find her voice now, if she didn't scream, didn't warn someone, it would carry him further. Straight into hell. Jonah's boots echoed against the linoleum as he moved down the hallway, the weapon steady in his grip. Behind him, the classroom he had left in ruin was drowning in sobs and muffled prayers. Ahead of him stretched silence, waiting to be broken. He had seen Mary. He hadn't expected that. For a heartbeat, it had shaken him. Her wide eyes, brimming with betrayal and fear, had cut deeper than the screams of strangers. But then he had remembered, she was part of this world too, the world that laughed, mocked, ignored. She had chosen to stay silent. In silence, she belonged to him. He pressed forward. His mind hummed with the rhythm of his footsteps, the faint ringing in his ears from the shots still vibrating. It was almost soothing now, like music. Another classroom lay ahead, the door cracked open. He could hear whispers, frantic shushing, the rustle of children pressed into corners. They thought if they stayed quiet, they'd vanish. Jonah smiled. He nudged the door open with the barrel. The room was darker than the hallway, shades drawn. Desks were overturned, and shadows shifted frantically as the students tried to make themselves small. For a long moment, he simply stood there, letting the silence swell. He could feel their fear, thick, suffocating, filling the air like smoke. "Do you know why this is happening?" he asked, his voice calm, almost gentle. No answer. Only a whimper. Jonah tilted his head, scanning the room. "It's because of lies. Because you laugh when you should listen. Because no one ever sees the truth until it's too late." His words hung in the air, heavy, confusing to the young minds pressed against the floor. He took one step inside. Then another. The boards creaked under his boots. A boy gasped. Jonah's head snapped toward the sound, and in that instant, the boy's small body jerked back, trembling. His teacher's arm wrapped around him, pulling him close, shielding him. Jonah's finger rested on the trigger. His breath slowed. He could end it in an instant. But something stopped him. Mary's eyes. Wide, desperate, begging. His jaw clenched. He couldn't shake the image, no matter how hard he tried. Instead, rage flared at himself, at her, at the hesitation crawling into his bones. With a guttural sound, he turned and fired into the ceiling. The blast shook the room, plaster raining down. Children screamed, curling tighter into themselves. "That's what silence buys you," he roared, his voice raw now, cracking under its own fury. He stormed out before his hand betrayed him again. The hallway swallowed him whole. His chest heaved, his pulse erratic. He told himself it didn't matter, that fear was enough, that he was still in control. But deep inside, a fracture had opened. And in that fracture, Mary's face lingered. The back of the school was shrouded in shadows, the chapel door a faint outline against the brick. Elena's lungs burned from running, but she didn't slow. Every second they hesitated was another second Jonah held the children in his grip. Michael was right behind her, clutching a heavy iron key ring that rattled with each stride. His face was pale, sweat streaking down his temples, but his jaw was locked in grim determination. The first door they tried was jammed. Elena yanked at the handle until her hands hurt. "Damn it!" "Here," Michael rasped, fumbling through the keys. His fingers trembled as he tried one after another. The screams from inside the building rose and fell like waves, sometimes sharp and piercing, sometimes eerie with silence. Each sound cut deeper into Elena's chest. Finally, click. The lock gave, the door creaking open. A rush of air greeted them, hot and metallic, tinged with the acrid bite of gunpowder. Elena's stomach churned. She pressed her sleeve against her mouth and stepped inside. The corridor was dimly lit, the fluorescence above flickering unevenly. The walls bore posters of saints and scripture verses, their words warped under the trembling light. Somewhere down the hall, footsteps echoed, steady and heavy. "Jonah!" Michael clutched his crucifix in one hand, a flashlight in the other. His lips moved silently praying, or maybe just trying to hold himself together. Elena crouched low, motioning for him to follow. Every instinct told her to keep quiet, to move carefully, though her body screamed to run and drag every child she could find out into the night. They passed the first classroom. The door was shut, shades drawn. Inside, she could hear muffled sobs. She reached for the handle. Michael stopped her with a firm hand. His whisper was urgent, "If you open that door, you'll expose them." He could be watching. She froze. He was right. Every decision now was a gamble. The footsteps came again closer. A deliberate rhythm, slow, almost taunting. Michael's grip on her arm tightened. He's hunting. Elena's throat tightened, but she forced herself forward. They slipped down another hallway, moving toward the chapel entrance, where the sound seemed to be drawing nearer. Then they heard it. A shot louder now, just a few rooms away. Plaster dust rained from the ceiling. Children screamed, voices sharp and panicked, then abruptly cut off into silence. Elena's heart seized. He's right there. He's so close. Michael's face had gone rigid, but his eyes blazed with something new, resolve born of terror. He leaned close and whispered, "If we don't stop him here, more will die." Elena swallowed hard, her breath shallow. The footsteps were coming straight toward them now. The weight of the moment pressed down like a stone. For the first time that night, she realized she wasn't just trying to save the children. She was walking into Jonah's storm. And he was waiting. The hallway stretched ahead, long and narrow, the flickering lights casting broken shadows on the floor. The footsteps had stopped. Elena froze, her breath caught in her chest. Michael's flashlight beam wavered slightly, his hand trembling. The silence was unbearable, thicker than the darkness itself. Then, from around the corner, he appeared. Jonah. The duffel slung over his shoulder, the weapon held low but steady, his posture loose, too loose, like a predator at ease in its hunt. His eyes flicked first to Elena, then to Michael, narrowing with recognition. "You," he said, voice calm, almost curious. Elena's throat tightened, but she forced herself to stand tall. Her voice cracked only slightly as she answered, "Jonah. Put it down. Please." He tilted his head, studying her. The faintest smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "You shouldn't be here. Neither of you." Michael stepped forward before Elena could stop him. His crucifix swung in the dim light, his voice firm despite the tremor beneath it. "Jonah. This is not your truth, it's your torment speaking. You don't need to let it win." Jonah's eyes sharpened, the smile fading. He raised the weapon a fraction, not aiming yet, but enough to make Elena's blood run cold. "Don't," Jonah said flatly. "Don't speak to me like you know me." His voice cracked, rage bleeding through. "You watched. You let them laugh. You let me rot. And now you come to stop me?" Michael's hand trembled at his side, but he didn't move back. "I was silent," he admitted, his voice low. "And I was wrong. But silence ends tonight, yours and mine." For a flicker of a moment, Jonah's gaze wavered. His eyes darted to Elena, searching, as if weighing her. Her heart pounded, but she stepped closer, just one pace, her palms raised. "Jonah. Mary's here," she whispered. The words hit him like a blow. His shoulders stiffened, his eyes flashing. "Don't." His voice was sharp now, brittle. "Don't say her name. She's scared," Elena pressed, her voice breaking but steady enough to cut through the tension. "Scared of what you've become. Don't make her remember you like this." For a heartbeat, silence. Jonah's chest rose and fell, shallow and fast. His finger hovered against the trigger. Michael glanced at Elena, his expression tense, and gave the slightest nod encouraging her to keep going. Elena swallowed hard, taking another step forward. Every nerve screamed at her to stop, but she didn't. "It doesn't have to end this way. You can still." The crack of his voice stopped her. "Enough. He raised the weapon fully now, pointing it directly at Michael. The priest didn't flinch. He simply stood, eyes locked on Jonah, lips whispering a prayer that only Elena could half hear. Jonah's hands trembled. The storm was breaking inside him. And in that fragile moment, the entire corridor held its breath. The corridor was frozen in silence, every breath suspended. Jonah's finger twitched against the trigger. Michael's prayer was a whisper now, rising and falling like a candle flame in a storm. Then it broke. The blast thundered down the hallway. Elena screamed as Michael staggered back, the crucifix falling from his hand, clattering against the floor. His shoulder exploded with blood, his face contorted with pain. He collapsed against the wall, gasping, but somehow, he was still alive. "Father!" Elena dropped to her knees, pressing her hands desperately against the wound, her fingers slick with blood. Jonah's chest heaved, the weapon trembling in his grip. He had pulled the trigger, yet instead of satisfaction, a sick wave of nausea rolled through him. His eyes darted between Michael writhing but not silent and Elena, who stared up at him with a mixture of terror and fury. "Look what you've done," she cried, her voice breaking, echoing through the corridor. Jonah's face twisted. "I told you not to stand in my way." His voice cracked into something feral. He swung the weapon toward her. Elena froze, her body instinctively curling over Michael's, shielding him. Her breath came sharp and fast. Her heart hammered so loudly she could barely hear. Jonah's finger hovered over the trigger again, just a squeeze, and both of them would be gone. But his hand shook. Elena's eyes locked with his, wide, fearless despite the tears streaming down her face. "If you kill me," she said, her voice trembling but steady enough to cut through the roar in his head, "Mary will never forgive you." Her words pierced deeper than the bullet ever could. For a heartbeat, Jonah faltered. His eyes flickered, the weapon wavering. He could still hear Mary's voice in his memory, soft, pleading, the way she looked at him only minutes ago. But then the rage surged back, hotter, blinding. He let out a guttural roar and fired again, this time into the wall just inches above Elena's head. Plaster exploded, raining down over her. She didn't flinch. Instead, she shouted, her voice raw, "Mary! He's here!" The name ricocheted through the hallway like another gunshot. Jonah's eyes widened in shock then narrowed into fury. From somewhere deeper in the school, faint but unmistakable, came the sound of footsteps pounding closer. Mary had heard. Jonah's grip on the weapon tightened. His chest rose and fell like a man drowning. The walls seemed to close in around him, Elena's defiance, Michael's blood on the floor, Mary rushing toward him. The storm he had built was collapsing inward. And Jonah knew, with a sick certainty, that he was running out of time.